This episode is brought to you by TherapyNotes, therapynotes.com. They are the leading electronic health record system for private practices in the mental health field. They're who I use in my practice, so be sure and check them out, therapynotes.com. This is the Practice of Therapy podcast with Gordon Brewer, helping you to navigate your private practice journey. This is session number 189 of the Practice of Therapy podcast. Hello, folks. I'm Gordon Brewer. Glad you're with me for the podcast and glad you're with me on this journey. If this is the first time for you to listen to the podcast, I'm glad you found us, and I hope you'll come back and listen to more episodes and go back and listen to some of the past episodes, because we've got a lot of great materials there and a lot of great guests that you can learn from. So I'm looking forward to you hearing from my guest today. He's a repeat guest, by the way, Chris Swenson. Chris and I met back in 2019 at Killing It Camp out in Estes Park, Colorado. And you're going to hear more about that from me, I'm sure, here in some future episodes, because I'm planning on going again. And so looking forward to that. It's beautiful venue at the YMCA of the Rockies, but we'll get to that at another time. But anyway, Chris and I in this episode talk a lot about mindset, but also talk about some of the work that he's doing on teaching therapists and counselors how to do self-publishing. And one of the things around that is your mindset. And so I'm looking forward to you hearing my conversation with Chris around that. One thing I'll say about mindset, I think that's a struggle area for a lot of us when it comes to running a private practice. Particularly around money, and not to get too far off on a tangent here, but one of the things that I see from people a lot, and I know I've struggled with this in the past, is that we can tend to be penny wise but dollar foolish, as kind of the old saying goes. In other words, we hold back on investing in our practice and investing in things that we can get a return on our investment from. One example of that is hiring someone to answer the phones. It's one of the first places that I think anybody should invest in. The other is their website, being able to invest in things like your electronic health record system. I know I'm going to be talking some more about that here in just a minute, but one of the things that I think is important to do is just look at your mindset around that. And I know I've had to change my mindset some just around money and that sort of thing, but also the mindset around imposter syndrome. And Chris and I are going to talk some about that. But before we get to that conversation, I wanted to really excited to really announce in this particular episode the launch of my second Google Workspace course that'll be coming out the first part of September. And this particular course is called Using Google Workspace as a Practice Platform. And what it is designed to do, what this course does, is really kind of piggybacks on the other course that I have out there, Google Workspace for Therapists, and really kind of diving in deeper into how to use the different tools of Google Workspace to create a practice platform for yourself, a virtual platform that really goes in, that helps you run the business side of your practice. There's so many different things that you can do within the Google Workspace environment. It doesn't necessarily replace an electronic health record system like TherapyNotes, which I'm going to tell you a little more about them here in a minute. There are just some things that Google Workspace won't do. But anyway, I've got a course coming out the first part of September, and I want you to be able to take advantage of the early bird pricing I've got going on right now. From now until the end of August, you can get it at the early bird price or the pre-launch price of just $179. That's $90 off the regular price, what the course will be regularly priced at, but take advantage of that. And you will get the updates as they come, also lifetime access to the course. So as I change and augment the course down the road, you will always get those changes and it'll be there as a reference for you. But if you'll go to practiceoftherapy.com/GWS platform, that's practiceoftherapy.com/GWS platform, you can take advantage of the early bird pricing, plus find out more about the course. There's more to tell about it than I can really cover in just this little bit of intro. So anyway, be sure and check that out. And also be sure and check out the sponsor of our podcast, which I'm thrilled to be partnered with, and that is TherapyNotes. If you go to practiceoftherapy.com/TherapyNotes, you can check them out. They are the leading electronic health record system for mental health providers. They're who I use in my practice, and I highly recommend them for running the clinical side of your practice. Your documentation, your client billing, your filing insurance claims. There's also a patient portal that's second to none. And the other thing about TherapyNotes is that their support is also second to none. If you run into problems or need to troubleshoot, they are absolutely responsive and will help you out. So be sure and check them out, practiceoftherapy.com/TherapyNotes. And if you'll be sure and use the promo code Gordon, Gordon, you can get 2 months of their services for free. So be sure and check them out. So now that we've covered all of that, let's get to my conversation with Chris Swenson. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome again to the podcast. And I'm so glad to have back on the podcast Chris Swenson. And Chris and I met, I guess it's been 2 years ago now, hasn't it been, Chris?
It has been a couple years ago,
yeah. At Killing It Camp out in Colorado. And so glad to have you back on, Chris.
Oh, it's always a pleasure. It is. It's great. I enjoyed meeting you out there and being on this show, and I love what you all do.
So as I start with everyone, why don't you, for folks that don't know about you, why don't you tell folks a little bit about yourself and how you've landed where you've landed?
My name is Chris Swenson. Sometimes people go with Chris Rhino Swenson. And what I do is I am helping maybe a self-publishing coach, mindset coach at the same time. So I've worked a lot with, over the years through my private practice and some mindset coaching as well with my Rhino mentality. And now I published a couple of books myself over the years and saw how much people always wanted to write a book. I didn't realize it was a bucket list for some therapists, coaches, consultants. And a lot of them, it was so overwhelmed with the process or how this became. So I decided maybe I need to help them out. And so I put some stuff out there and people have been well received. And so now that's a thing. I just feel like the information that we all have can really be distributed out to people in a way that can really move people and a chance for us to put that creativity to work. And so helping the people with the self-publishing process has been a very great joy.
Right. And one of the things about that too, Chris, that I think most therapists or people in our space here really begin to think about is like you said, they have a passion for something that they want to communicate to the world, but also it's a great way to really think about diversifying your income in terms of putting something out there content that people want to purchase and that sort of thing. And I would say the other thing too is it really kind of helps kind of establish you as an expert in a particular niche or field or topic. And so that's It's a really cool thing. So I know, as you and I talked about before we started recording, why don't you take us through just kind of the whole self-publishing process and what's involved in that?
Okay, definitely. And just to kind of piggyback on what you were saying, I think that's a lot because people look at, I want to write a book, and gosh, I might not make a whole lot of money from the book. Now, there are, like for me, a lot of them, I still get like royalty payments monthly. I mean, it's nothing tremendous, but it's been the other avenues from it. It's been that authority, credibility that can lead to, speaking events, programs, the stuff that can build off of what that is becomes like astronomical. And so that's
Mm-hmm.
a lot of that is a way of kind of like having a great business card. I think even for people in private practice, having that book is a great business card that this is what I have done. It put yourself out there, instant credibility. I think that's a big thing. Beyond just the thing about you're an author,
Mm-hmm.
like
Mm-hmm.
wow, that is something. But when I look at like the self-publishing process to get into that, um, there's a lot of hangups that could go through it, and so many like intricate details because it can be pretty overwhelming, honestly, and probably too much to just really get into for the time we have. But we can kind of get a little process with it that
Mm-hmm.
look at. I mean, you want to start off with obviously like an idea. There might be a certain idea that you have that you've always wanted to write about. I think there's people out there that maybe, gosh, I've really in my practice, I've helped people with this, and I just take them through this process. Well, that becomes an easy way of really putting that idea down on paper to write with. So it's
Mm-hmm.
having that idea first and deciding upon what that idea is. And you can definitely go like on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, kind of take a look at other books in that genre, see what kind of titles are there, see what people have already written, maybe based on that, and then spend some time looking at reviews because the reviews will give you an idea what people liked. Maybe there were certain things that were missing from the book that you can add to that in yours. So a little bit of a research stuff with that idea. And
Mm-hmm.
once you get that idea, the next thing you want to do is you really need to set up and identify your purpose for writing this book and those book objectives, because that purpose is what's going to guide you through that process. Because once you enter that jungle, like there's a path, and that's what we're talking about, the steps, the path. But when you get out in there's a lot of whispers in that jungle, a lot of temptations and distractions that if you forget why, you're going to get off track. You're going to start not fulfilling it, not doing it. And so knowing what is the purpose of this helps you to kind of face some fears, face some difficulties. But it also gives you the idea, like if I just want to write a book, okay, when you get to like the marketing, you get to the book launch, there's a different way you might look at that. If someone's saying that I want to like write a book, but then build a program from that, then there's a different aspect. So that purpose initially will help kind of guide the later steps that you're
Mm-hmm.
doing. You need to get that purpose and the book objectives about what do you really want the reader to get from this.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just to go write about me, or whatever, but what do you really want that reader to kind of get from that? And then once you get that established, you're looking at moving into, you can kind of look at the style of the book maybe you want to write, as far as do you want to do kind of like a traditional business type thing where I want a scientific, hey, here's my method, here's the research behind it, and that making it kind of a bigger book. Or it becomes like the first book that I wrote, I had hundreds of blog posts written, hundreds of them. And I just wanted to narrow it down to some of the best ones that I had. So I narrowed it down to 32 and made my book Rhino Life Lessons. They're like 32 lessons to help with confidence and such. And each one of those became like a separate chapter. And I was able to expand on it, offer some coaching with it, and then put that through. So there's a way to repurpose with the style
Mm-hmm.
of the book. There's also, you're just looking at the style. And my second one, I wrote it more like a story. That when you follow the character through, you learn the lessons that come with it. And so you kind of establish what you want to do. After you get that, now you move into the outline. And the outline becomes something that helps with the writing process. And that outline can be difficult for some to get set up. But ways of doing that, sometimes it's just sit down and like just brain dump everything you can think of related to that topic and just write it down or type it out or whatever you need to do and just get it all there. And then maybe you can sort through common themes to kind of put how you want it to go. Outlines for people that have like a program where you take them step by step through. That outline becomes those steps. In other words, somebody comes in, whether it's anxiety, depression, or even helping to build a private practice, for example, there might be like certain steps that they need to go through. And as you outline the steps, how you get them from point A to point B, those steps become your main chapters that are in there. And so you can put the chapters out in an outline. And as far as the information goes, there might be stuff that you can jot down, the ideas and stories that you want to say in those chapters for the most part. You can also see, oh my gosh, on this topic, I don't know very much. Maybe I need to do some research and kind of research some other those areas so I can kind of add to this. Or I've got too much here. Okay, well, do I make it a separate chapter? So you get that outline that's out. And there's like storyboard is it's a really fun way. I know like Casey Pennington does that, and she showed me hers when she puts little sticky notes up.
Oh yeah,
and it'll be hers has it all by colors. Even like this color is my main thing. These other ones will be kind of the the other parts to the outline, but in a different color. And then it was funny because she had told me that all of a sudden she had to move that, and a lot of them fell off, so she had to reorganize it. But there's like a different way in which you can, however, you get creative with the outline that helps what you do. And once you got that, now it's time to write. And for a lot of people, I don't know if I have the time to do this. When do I find the time? And you start getting a lot of that mindset stuff of, is anyone probably not even going to be interested in this? Some doubt stuff starts to kind of creep in. That's where that purpose really does help. And a lot of hangups, I'm glad that we're kind of going over this process, because people it'll be like, I have an idea. What next? And that's kind of what we're talking about here. Or I started writing. Well, what do I do now? And so what I recommend is when you start writing, try to get like a writing plan. And you can get very technical if you want, which is, I want to have this book published by this day. Okay. So if I take a look at either how many chapters I need to write, you can back that up by how many I need to do each day or each week. Some people look at how many pages I want to write. Okay, how many pages do I need to write each day, each week? And then you just execute with the plan. What I tell people is, if all of a sudden it's like, my gosh, I said I was going to have it done by this day and it's not, that's okay. Maybe we just erred on how fast we could get that written.
Right.
That's fine. Just move it forward. But that first writing, just write it. And a tip that I use, because I don't like to type, I speak it. And so I use like the word dictation feature. And we speak faster than we actually like type or write. So you can actually get a lot more written a lot quickly. So when you go through that first rough draft, just put it out there. Don't edit. Don't start getting in your head. Just put it out there. You'll go back to that later, but just get it out. And so when you get the rough draft done, then you want to go back and take a look at like a self-edit, which is a whole process in and of itself. But I mean, technically, you're looking at doing any grammatical stuff. You're also taking a look at, like, what I'll do is each of those chapters are objectives, and there's a certain thing of how do I take the reader from point A to point B, and were they able to do that in there? Was I clear enough? And so I could do a little bit of a self-edit and maybe do my own stuff. This is where it gets different in the process. A lot of people with self-publishing will recommend that you hire an editor. And there's different kinds of editors. I mean, there's content editors, development editors, there's even just the grammatical people that look at different parts of it. But a lot of, you can get editors through like Fiverr. There's a lot of writing associations too. And it's not too expensive. And sometimes that could be extremely valuable to do. But there is a pretty detailed self-editing way, if people want to do it on a budget, that you can kind of go after and look at. So you're going to want to get it edited so that it's pretty solid. All of that stuff is ready to go. Once that is done, you can obviously correct the edits or whatever. And you could go on and on with this. This is another area people will get into, is continuing to edit it. They start to learn more information about the topic. So, oh my gosh, I need to include this. And pretty soon that they're never getting it done because we're always learning. And to keep adding all that can just drag the process on, and it's to stick to it, get it done. You can always revise or have another edition. That could definitely go on. But
yeah.
Once you get done with editing, there's also a part like when you do edit, if you do send it off to be edited, during that time you could decide upon a title. You can start looking at how you want to design a cover, what that might look like. I know I use Canva an awful lot. I think doing covers for ebooks is a lot easier because you just do a front cover. That's pretty much it. So you can use Canva for that, but it's also something you could hire it out for a graphic designer or someone that does book design, especially if you go to paperback. And that was a mistake I made because I just stuck my one up on paperback. So I kind of did it on my own, but it's all right. I just would like it better because I'm not a graphic designer. Because then you're getting the front cover, you're getting the binding, you're also getting the back cover designed, all of those, and laid out nice. So you can do those stuff while you're waiting to get back with edits a lot of times.
Right.
And of course, once the edit's back, you recorrect, and then now it's a matter of going back to your purpose now. What do you want to do with the book? Who do you want to reach? Because you're going to look at how do you want to distribute that book? Do you want to just use Amazon? Amazon's probably the world's largest book sale thing now. It's phenomenal.
Right.
And it's not too difficult to format. They have their own little KDP, Kindle Direct Publishing, that you can kind of go through, and a lot of videos that help you format. But it's also, you could hire out to have someone format for you too.
Right.
There's an option. But there's a format that Amazon wants. There's also a format that Barnes & Noble would want. So sometimes people might, if your goal was, I just wanted to have like a freebie off my website, you could just format it as a PDF. You don't have to get it so massively formatted for like Amazon type of thing. So you could just do a PDF, and then that might be how you move forward with that.
Right.
If you look at, I want to definitely go through Amazon, but I like a lot of these other retailers to get it. There are places like Ingram Sparks is another great company that will basically format that stuff for you and submit it to those various things for you, and you still retain the rights. That's what's key. You still have your own rights to it. Some of those you just pay a monthly fee to belong to that, or a per book fee. Smashwords is another one. Like you submit, basically from that, you just need a Word doc, submit it to Smashwords, and they'll format it in all the various formats and send it out to everybody on all of the online retailers and stuff. And like Ingram Sparks, Amazon, all of them also have print on demand, which is nice. You don't have to buy like 100,000 books and store them in your garage.
Right.
Yeah. So if somebody purchases it, then they send it out. There's a fee that they'll charge, but you still make some money from that as well. But the distribution stuff is things that you get, but you're also looking at a marketing plan. And this becomes kind of that final step, so to speak, is how do you get reviews? And I never realized until I was an author and got into this how valuable those reviews are. Because I used to read a ton of books. I still do. And a lot of times I'll tell people about it all the time, but I never left like a review. And those things become massive to help people, not only with the book sales, but to get like moved up to be like Amazon bestsellers in whatever categories, things like that. So one way of doing that is you put together kind of like your book launch team, and you'll let them know ahead of time, hey, I'm going to send you a copy of the book. Maybe you read a few chapters or whatever this is, but it's to promote out on social media with us, do that. I know Casey's recent book, I'm actually in the book, which is kind of cool. I'm in there, so it's kind of neat. I'm excited.
Oh, wow. That's cool. Yeah.
Yeah. And so then I'm going to be part of that book launch team too, to kind of help, get that out there, which is great. And that's what's interesting, because with authors, there really isn't competition, because if somebody buys your book, like on Amazon, for example, they always have suggested books on the similar topics, and your book is right there.
Right. Right.
Yeah, definitely. Even if you leave a review at times, people will say, well, who is this? And then, wow, it goes. So
Yes.
the more you help others, they help you too with that.
Right. Right.
With that marketing thing, you want to get that book launch team kind of together and helping them to promote, for one thing. But also, like on launch day, there are times, like I was on a launch team with this other lady, and she had us kind of like, on this day, I'll give you a code, so you'll be able to buy it for free on Amazon. And then it's basically, you can scroll through or read as much as you can for so long, and then go on and leave a review. So on that day, there was a number of us purchasing right on that day, leaving reviews, and that helps to really bump it up to like getting on, like new and noteworthy and stuff like that, and up on Amazon lists. But there is so many creative ways of kind of launching the book. But a lot of it is building that. I think as authors, you really do want to try to build an audience. You could have a blog. If like most coaches or consultants are going to have kind of a following that's there, and it's to make sure that that's part of what you're recommending out to. But essentially, that's pretty much the process overall.
Yeah, and thanks for going into so much detail about that, because I think this is just going to be really, really helpful for a lot of people, and just thinking about being able to self-publish. It's easier now than it ever has been to put a book out there. And I like what you said there towards the end about building a following. I think whenever you do something like this, I'm reminded of Pat Flynn's book, Superfans,
Yes,
being out. Yes.
great
And
book.
so, yeah. And so that's another way to think about with this marketing stuff. One of the things you hit on, maybe a little bit, maybe before we started recording, Chris, was just around mindset. And I think a lot of times people do have a bit of imposter syndrome when it comes to writing. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely, because with me, when I developed my rhino mentality, before all that, it was very defeatist, just my story going back, things don't go well, I'm not good enough, blah, blah, blah. And I started working in a lot of programs that a lot of our special operations soldiers put out there for mental toughness programs. I just got done doing a great one with David Rutherford back in the fall. It was wonderful. He had us doing like cold showers and ice baths and all this crazy stuff to kind of face fears and deal with uncomfortableness. But I put together my mindset of running mentality, which has changed a lot of that. And so part of what I do when you look at like imposter syndrome, I see a lot of people like, how do I get rid of this? Once I get rid of this, now I can finally do it. And what I tell people is, you're not going to get rid of it. It's part of the whispers in the jungle. Like, it's going to be there. It's to accept it, to embrace it, and then move through it. It's just, when you get on, it's like turbulence in an airplane. They're going to experience turbulence as part of the climate. That's going to be part of it. I think if we're going to put ourselves out there, at some point, we are going to hear the whispers of imposter syndrome. And knowing that, okay, this is just part of the journey, accepting it, embracing it, moving through, that's what makes us stronger as well. It's just not believing the lies. Like imposter syndrome it's like a mafia dude that just lies to you and gets you to believe stuff, and you discredit you when everyone else around you is like, what do you see? Like, we're seeing this great stuff. And you're like, nah. So sometimes like owning those accomplishments and really like taking the lenses off that imposter syndrome has you seeing you, and see you for who you really are, and own that. And accept that we're all human. We'll have that. So yeah, those are big things, because with writing, imposter syndrome becomes big of, who am I? Can I really be an expert on this? Yeah. And those are those whispers I always say in the job. Yeah.
Right, right. Yeah, it just it reminds me a lot too. And I know being in the mental health field yourself, Chris, this is the same kind of stuff that our clients deal with all the time. And it's just that I've also referred to it as the internal critic that's there, that's constantly bombarding us with this message. And the other thing too is that it's better to take imperfect action rather than perfect action. It's just, and like what you said, is just put the draft out there first. Just get it done and get that out there, and then you can fine tune it afterwards. That's great.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's like a lot of our clients go through that, and then I've realized like when it's us in it, like up here, I'll know what I'm supposed to do. Maybe have the awareness of this is happening to me.
Mm-hmm.
That emotional end, and then it's different. Now you start to find out about what's your usual responses. Do you have a tendency to kind of run from things, or do you have a tendency to avoid things? And a lot of that can just get trained into your brain as an automatic response. And
Mm-hmm.
uh, sometimes what a lot of us as therapists miss is retraining that response. And that was the point of like the last program I went through with ice baths and cold showers,
Mm-hmm.
was retraining your brain from uncomfortableness. Where at first it's like, this is nuts, this is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
You get in there and you're shaking because it's so cold. And it's like your brain's like, I want to get out. I want to quit. And so that becomes your usual thing of either avoiding the uncomfortable or running from it quickly. Instead, it's no, you find a purpose. You get yourself in those situations where you're dealing with uncomfortableness on a regular basis and still functioning through it. That starts to retrain our responses to when we hear those whispers. And that takes some time to do, just like a muscle that we all need to have from a mindset standpoint. And I
Right.
think a lot of us, we miss some of that. We get it, but to actually do the work it takes to retrain your brain.
Right. Right. It's learning to sit with the discomfort of things. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
that's the part of, like you said, the imperfection. How do you sit? You release the book and realize, dang, I really messed up on this section.
Right. Right.
It's okay. You're human. That's part
Yeah.
of how you've learned something.
Right. Right. Oh man. Well, I love this, Chris, and I love what you've taken on with this project, because I think it's something that's needed. And I think just well, not necessarily project, but just a new direction in your niche, and just having known kind of what things that you've worked on. And it's a great thing. So I want to be respectful of your time, but tell folks how they can get in touch with you and find out more about this work you're doing.
Well, the easiest thing is just right on Facebook. I do have the self-publishing for therapists, coaches, and consultants. It's a free therapy. It's a free group on Facebook. So you just search up, self-publishing for therapists, coaches, and consultants, or even just search my name, Chris Swenson. I know there's a lot of Chris Swensons, but yes, if he looks like me, then that's the one.
Okay. Okay.
To kind of find for the group. And what I have is that process we described. I've put together a course that's a guided course. It's not just your typical course as, okay, here, do this. Okay, here's your information. It's me kind of like being like a guided meditation, like guiding you through the process. Like, okay, this is mission one. These are the steps to accomplish it. But it's also me like saying the things like, normally about now is when you start to question whether or not you should do this. Are you
Mm-hmm.
doing that? If so, we need to, X, Y, Z. And
Mm-hmm.
then checking in, like, where are you at with this process? So it's almost like a virtual reality kind of, I don't know if that's the right word, but virtual guiding of a coach
Uh-huh.
there. And I know, like, so far now when I'm running that, I am actually with so many, like the first so many people or whatever that sign up, I will work with them because I want to know what's working, what's not working. Because I really
Mm-hmm.
want to give people like they have lifetime access, so it's book after book. Like you can just plug in and do this. It's like having that, like Alexa or whoever there to like, oh, this is what I need to do. Just follow along, and when I'm done, I got it. So
Right.
there's
Right.
that as well. But the Facebook group would be a great way. There's a lot of great people in there,
Mm-hmm.
questions and helpful tools.
Awesome. Awesome. And we'll have links here in the show notes for that. If somebody wanted to email you, could they do that?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Probably the easiest is just Chris S. So CHRISS at rhinowellnesscenter.com.
Awesome. Awesome. And again, we'll have that in the show notes and show summary. Well, thanks again, Chris, and look forward to maybe having you back again. Well, folks, I hope you enjoyed hearing from Chris again, and I'm grateful to him for being on the podcast again and the work that he's doing and really helping those of us in this this field and this genre, or whatever you want to refer to it as, really thinking about getting over some of the mindset struggles that we have. Even though we're therapists and counselors and mental health providers and coaches and that sort of thing, we know this stuff because we talk about it with our clients, but sometimes it's kind of hard to apply to ourselves. And I think a lot of times we get kind of mixed messages, and it's really easy to fall into that imposter syndrome and that sort of thing. I know it's something that I have to remind myself of and be mindful of a lot, is that thinking that I'm not good enough or not seasoned enough or haven't had the right coursework or the right certifications, and all of that stuff can get in our way of keeping us from moving forward. So anyway, I think Chris is right on the mark. And so be sure and check out his materials as well. Again, you'll find links here in the show notes and the show summary. And also Chris is being very generous by giving the listeners of the podcast 20% off the course that he's created around self-publishing. And so again, you'll find links here in the show notes and the show summary that'll get you there and get that discount. So again, big thanks to Chris for joining me. Also, before you forget about it, be sure and check out the early bird special and the pre-launch price of the Using Google Workspace as a Practice Platform course. It's an additional course that I've come out with in addition to Google Workspace for Therapists that's been out for a while. This is a new course, and you can get in on a good deal and get $90 off the price of the course during the early bird period. So if you'll go to practiceoftherapy.com/GWS platform, you can check it out and find out more about what's going to be contained in that course. Got a good bit of material in it already, but I'm adding to it every week, and we're going to get it ready for a full launch the first part of September. That's my goal, and I'm pushing myself to get there. But anyway, I would love for you to go over and check it out and take advantage of that early bird pricing. Again, that's practiceoftherapy.com/GWS platform. And also, before we go, be sure and check out the sponsors of our podcast, and that's TherapyNotes. And if you'll go to practiceoftherapy.com/TherapyNotes, you can find out more about what they have to offer. They are the leading electronic health record system for mental health providers. And I'm just more and more impressed with their platform and the updates that they're doing. It is really an all-inclusive platform to handle the clinical side of your practice. As I said, they are who I use in my practice. So be sure and check them out. practiceoftherapy.com/therapynotes. TherapyNotes. And also, I forgot to mention at the beginning, be sure and use the coupon code Gordon, just GORDON, and you can try them out for 2 months at no cost. And so it's a win-win deal. So be sure and check them out. And that's all I have for today's episode. Be sure and subscribe to the podcast wherever you might be listening to it. And I'm so glad that you're with me on this journey. And I look forward to having you back again. And be sure and spread the word and let others know if you're enjoying the podcast. Take care, folks, and have a great rest of your week or weekend. Been listening to the Practice of Therapy podcast with Gordon Brewer. Please visit us at practiceoftherapy.com for more information, resources, and tools to help you in starting, building, and growing your private practice. And if you haven't done so already, please sign up to receive the free private practice startup guide at practiceoftherapy.com. The information in this podcast is intended to be accurate and authoritative concerning the subject matter covered. It is given with the understanding that neither the hosts, guests, or producers are rendering legal, accounting, or clinical advice. If you need a professional, you should find the right person for that.